Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Austin B Media Podcast. I'm your host, Austin Belzer. Today, we're going to be celebrating the 1 year anniversary of Ted Lasso's season/series finale, based on who you ask,
Yeah.
with a discussion of the show, where the show could be headed next, projects cast members are involved in, and of course, a book that Alise wrote based around Ted Lasso called The Ted Lasso Guide to Relationships, which is available for pre-order right now, right as I'm recording this.
Last time we talked was about Gen V, so this is kind of like the
Yeah.
absolute opposite kind of television show from Gen V and the boys.
Yeah,
So
no
yeah.
no uh no toxic masculinity, no like exploding guts or anything. Just a man from Kansas with a mustache telling people how bringing Kansas City values to England. I don't know why I blanked on the name of the one of the biggest country. Well, I don't know one of the biggest, but probably some of like it's probably like top 10. But
Up there. Yeah. Right.
yeah, let's just get into it. First, I let's start with the series overview.
Okay.
So, looking back at all three seasons, and I'm also going to include that Christmas special they did,
Oh yeah.
because I was thinking about that as I was waking up this morning. I was like, oh, yeah, they did a Christmas thing too.
Right.
So looking back at all the things Ted Lasso, I guess even including the NBC Sports stuff, because it is based off an NBC Sports character that then turned into a TV show.
Right.
Um, well, out of all those moments in the series, what moment surprised you most in terms of character development or a plot
I
twist?
think one of the biggest just like shifting moments in the whole show for me has to be when Ted reveals what happened to his father. I think that is
Yeah.
just such a massive moment. It's in season 2 in the episode Man City. They go to Manchester and they play. They lose horribly in this game. And there's this beautiful interaction, well, a horrible interaction between Jamie Tart and his dad, James, and then a beautiful interaction between Roy and Jamie, just one of the like all-time best moments. And then Ted walks outside and calls his therapist, Dr. Sharon, and he tells her that his father died by suicide. And it is just this massive kind of thing. We know pretty early in the show that his father passed away when he was 16. But to have all of a sudden, oh my goodness, this isn't, I mean, that's already a tragic kind of loss, but to find out, oh, this is the story behind it was just like, it kind of reframed, I feel like everything with regard to how we saw Ted, at least for me anyway. So I don't know. That to me was just such a massive turning point in the show.
Yeah, and I think it kind of set the precedent of the road trip episodes kind of being these huge moments for the show.
For sure.
Because even though they had one, I think the season before,
Hmm.
it was just like, oh, hey, let's go out to the club, and that's when not Ted has his first
Yeah.
panic attack. My brain is just
Tim Lasso. I mean, it's okay because I think that's what's on the gift basket that he gets whenever he goes to his apartment the first time. It's welcome Tim Lasso. So yeah,
yeah.
it works.
I think honestly, and for me, the moments that have stuck out to me the most are the most internet brain rot versions of the thing. The thing that you've seen on TikTok. I love the dartboard
Yeah.
scene. I love the one last season where Ted just can't sleep and he
Mm,
just ends up going to a bar and starts hallucinating.
yeah, that's a great.
It's just this moment of, oh, he's in deep. Like you
Mm,
already knew kind of first two seasons that he was really struggling, but this was the one where it really said, no, we're going to lay it to bear. This
right.
is him. I think kind of the big topic for me for season three was kind of let's fix Ted. Well, not fix because that's kind of a weird word when talking about mental health. Um,
Right.
but let's really work on Ted's mental health because of how season two ends, with Nate basically saying, "Oh yeah, my coach had a panic attack, but I'm not going to tell anyone it was me. But yeah, that moment really stuck out to me, at least in season 3. I'm sure there's some stuff from season 2 that stands out, like the Sam Obisanya and Rebecca Welton romance, Sam almost going to a different team. A lot of stuff from season 3, just I'm remembering now, his restaurant.
Yeah.
But I will say one thing, Rebecca and Ted should have gotten together. That is
Oh.
like the one thing that season 3, look, okay, you cannot do that airport scene to me and then just have it be nothing.
And then
Just
they're just friends, yeah.
like, come on. That was a classic 90s rom-com. Like, she is chasing down the love of her life. That is the wedding singer vibes. You can't you can't play with me like that. Come on.
That's fair. So I do talk about that in the book, like, so.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm reading it now, by the way.
Yeah,
I'm a few
yeah.
chapters in. Um, but I guess going back to it, still talking about moments, I guess,
Mhm.
or just kind of general overview. I guess we should go back a bit and talk about like what did you think of Ted Lasso when you first started it up? Like how did you discover Ted Lasso? I know you talked a bit about it in the first chapter of the book. Let's
Yeah.
go back a bit and talk about that.
Yeah, so it came out, I think, in the summer of 2020, and it was one of those shows that had, like, a building
Mhm.
kind of effect. Like, I don't think it came out and was a massive hit the day it, like,
No.
dropped on Apple. And, like, but I started hearing people talk about it probably sometime that fall. And I don't know, I'd probably watched everything that I wanted to watch at that
Mhm.
point because, everything was kind of like still in the quiet and we weren't doing a whole lot of going out. My husband and I had, like, I think when we bought our iPhones at that time, we got some kind, I think Apple included like a year of Apple TV for free. And we just never activated or whatever because we were like, well, I don't know how interested I am in that. And so we decided, well, let's go ahead because a few people had been we'd been hearing about this show, Ted Lasso. So I'm certain the whole first season was out when I started watching. And oh my goodness, my husband is not a television binger. He's like, one or two episodes and that's it for him. And we probably watched, honestly and truly, if we had started it earlier in the afternoon, we probably would have watched the whole first season in one sitting. Like, it would not shock me. We just pounded through the first season. It was just like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. And I was just a fan just from the start. Like, right out of the gate. I loved it. I think the time that I really truly all the way was in and was probably ready for the show to do whatever it wanted to do, was the episode Tan Lines. It's when Michelle and Ted break up
Oh, yeah.
officially. Yeah, I've spent a lot of time watching and analyzing Ted Lasso. So if I throw out like episode titles, I apologize. I've just watched this show so many times. I've been writing this book for almost a year and working on it. So, yeah.
Oh, no worries. I've kind of like title. I have like my own titles for Ted Lasso. Like Man City is like the one where everyone cries is Man City for me.
But yeah, I know, like, even just when you get to I think it's the third episode where he has the interview with Trent Krim.
Mhm.
And it's really kind of a setup to, Trent's there as kind of this foil for Ted in this moment of like, Rebecca's like, well, I can't get him in this real traditional kind of way. So I'm going to like come this back way around, and that Trent is going to be really hard on Ted because he knows he's not a great soccer coach. Like, and so, and you get to the end of that episode and it kind of turns on it, and you know Trent Krim writes something along the lines of, I don't think this is going to go well, but I'm going to be sad if it doesn't because I think Ted Lasso is the real deal. And like, even just then, but yeah, when with the breakup between Ted and Michelle, that was probably where it sold me, and probably where I stopped being really a critic or like any kind of like outside observer and just was a full fan. So I will say that I am not super balanced when I talk about Ted Lasso. I love it pretty unabashedly. Like, I understand there are some fairly significant issues, particularly particularly in season 3. Yeah, it has some issues. Nevertheless, I'm pretty in it, and I love Ted Lasso. And yeah, I think watching a breakup that isn't acrimonious and watching a divorce and having gone through a not great divorce myself a while ago, and getting to see this other way of it being handled was just so beautiful and so unique, and nothing I've ever seen on television, I don't think. And yeah, I've been a fan pretty much ever since.
Yeah, there's, like, no animosity in that moment. It was just
Right.
that pure expression of human feelings that I feel like a lot of, and I won't speak for everyone here, because obviously that experience is different from everyone, but I feel like Ted Lasso kind of said what a lot of divorcees wanted to say in the moment, but didn't have either the tools mentally, and
Mhm.
when I say mentally, I mean, like, they didn't have the not foresight, but, like, they didn't know why they failed or if who anything like that in the moment, and I think a lot of people would love to be able to say, "Oh, here's where I failed," or, "And I'm owning this right now, and I hope you're happy with your life, and I'll continue to be in your life because of our kid, and we need to be there for him," and yeah, I probably could have said that way more eloquently, but the coffee has not hit yet. Um,
I think one of the things that I love about it is there is this kind of stigma attached to divorce still, because
mhm,
you go into marriage and you expect it to last. I mean, you don't plan for a marriage to fail. And so I think there's this tendency to want to look for a villain in that
yeah,
situation. And like, even if there's not really anyone who did anything wrong, or it's not even like a bad situation, it's just over. I think there can be this, well, I've got to find some reason. And I love that that's just stripped from their interaction here. There's not a need to make Michelle a villain or make Ted a villain. It's just two people who got married and loved each other and still love each other in in some way, in some
mhm.
capacity, but it's just not the same. And it's not, I want to stay married to you kind of love. And I just appreciated that so much, because yeah, like I said, I don't think it's something I've ever seen personally, like, tackled in a television show.
Yeah, and that's, something that is consistent throughout the show is that at every point where I think there's a point in season 2 where I forget Ted's wife's name,
Michelle, yeah.
Michelle, like, moves on and is in this new relationship,
Right.
and she starts watching his games, and you think for a moment, like, just for a half second, it's like, "Oh, this could be an opportunity where the writers could have an opportunity to say, okay, let's build the bridge to get them back together,' and they don't, which I thought was
Right.
beautiful. Um, because they kinda make it out to be like, "Okay, you go watch your thing," and, they make a lot of jokes at the, significant other's experience,
Right.
but they just let Michelle kinda just, "Oh, no, I'm in my own life now." They don't ever set anything up, which I thought was really beautiful.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
I discovered the show, and to be clear, I couldn't criticize season 3 if I was held by gunpoint. Um
Uh-huh, right on.
Um, well, I could, but it would be scathing, and I don't think anyone wants to read that review. Like, it even hurt writing reviews of the last, I think, was it season 3 of High School Musical, the musical, the series, when I had to criticize it because I'm like, "I love this thing so much, but I have
Right.
to put my critic brain on and say, 'This is objectively bad.'"
Right.
And in my well, I guess subjectively bad because of the review,
Right, right.
of the things that have to happen in order to, it just had failings, as does Ted season 3. But yeah, I discovered this much in the same way you did, actually. I bought an iPhone, well, I didn't buy, leased an iPhone 11, and I got that trial. I think it's 6 months, if I'm recalling right. It might be a year. It's been 3 years since I looked at it, so,
Yeah, right.
and I didn't initially watch Ted Lasso when I activated that trial. I think I watched something else first. I forget what it was, but
It was that Jason Momoa show.
I know I didn't watch
I
that.
don't know.
I know I didn't watch that. I didn't watch C.
No, me either.
Oh, I think it was For All Mankind is what I started watching first.
That's fair.
Because I was like, that was the show that it launched with, Apple TV Plus launched with. And I don't think I got into Ted Lasso until like somewhere in season 2. And from there, I like binged all the way up till I caught up. I think it maybe took 2 days to get to mid season 2.
Yeah, that was definitely me. I'm just rolling right through it.
And then, yeah, the rest is history. Yeah, I followed it from there and basically said, because I had been reviewing at that point, I can't review this because I don't want to knock any of this down. And also, I think there was a concern from me that one of my favorite shows is Scrubs, right? And Bill Lawrence is the creator of Ted Lasso.
Right.
And I think I was concerned a lot about, well, if I review season 2, it's just going to be me talking about Scrubs all the time.
That's fair.
And that's not fair to the people reading. So I was like, yeah. And then when season 3 came out, and I'm like, okay, this might be something I just don't want to review because scathing reviews aren't my thing.
Right.
So yeah, that's in a nutshell. How I found out, and I think I found out by word of mouth mostly. I think it was just like around that same time where Animal Crossing and all the pandemic entertainment was becoming like a major thing. I was like, "Oh, well, what's the show Ted Lasso? Oh, that's Jason Sudeikis. Oh, it's got Bill Lawrence as the creator. Oh, it has like a bunch of people I know. Okay, all right, let's get into this." And then rest is history. But getting back to kind of the more broad strokes, this is going to be a tough discussion topic.
Yeah, not great
So,
for the algo here. Sorry.
yeah, YouTube algo. I'm sorry. I'm not. I put Spider-Man 2 up, and then I gave you this. Sorry. We're talking about mental health and emotions.
Exactly.
But yeah, the show tackles a lot of complex themes, and I think we may have touched on this, but you know, they talk about grief. Particularly, I think we already talked about Ted's dad and how that affects him. Uh, but it also touches on anxiety, particularly how to get help with your anxiety,
Yeah.
especially in season 2. So how did you feel about the balance there of trying to delicately cover these mental health topics while also trying to make a funny show that people could point to and be like, I'm going to make a meme of that.
Right. I think part of what made it work is they gave us season 1 first. And I don't mean that, I mean, obviously, but like the tone of season 1 is overall pretty light. Like it does talk about divorce there and like that, but that's kind of it. Like we don't delve super deep into a lot of like mental health things until season 2.
Yeah.
Like we get a little bit of it in the Liverpool where Ted's there, but we really kind of see it as tied to the divorce. And I think that is a broader thing that that touches on the lives of almost everybody to some degree. Either you know somebody, you've been through it yourself, it happened to your parents, it happened to a close friend. Like it feels very close and very relatable. And so if you can kind of like come in at it through that of like, okay, we know that Ted has some issues because yeah, when they're at the Liverpool game, you know, he kind of loses it during the Frozen karaoke moment. And, you know, and so you see him have that panic attack. So we know that there's something going on, but it really does seem to be connected to him signing stuff, you know, his divorce papers. And so there's largely that kind of thing. And I think because they gave us so much goodwill in season 1 that when they came at us with season 2 and it's like, oh no, this is going to be a more significant thing. I mean, season 2 opens up and it's kind of silly, but with, you know, Danny kicking the ball and, you know, ending the Greyhound, like there is that sort of moment there where it's like, and they bring in Dr. Sharon, you know,
Football
to kind of
is
help
not
him with
life.
the yips. Exactly. And so you have this, Yeah, like, and so people are kind of coming at it and they're like, oh, okay. But then they have this little bit of like hesitancy with Ted seeing a therapist. He's kind of, I don't know about her from the jump. And I think just the way they set up with season one in giving us such this wholesome thing, and we're invested. We love
Mhm.
Ted at season one. That dart scene, everybody's on board with whatever Ted does pretty much. And so when it comes to season two and you see all these kind of things happening to him, I think we're so on his side at this point that it's not. I think that's what lets it work, why it doesn't overwhelm the show where it's such a bummer. And granted, like season two got a lot of harder reviews, especially at kind of the midway point where they
Yeah.
had the Christmas episode is like episode six or something. I don't know. It's like right at the midway point. And those were extra episodes. It was that and Beard After Dark were two of the extra episodes that Apple said, hey, we'd like 12 episodes instead of just 10. And they have that extra kind of feel to them.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I love the Christmas episode now. I didn't love it when it came out. And like I have grown to love Beard After Dark, but it's a weird episode to just drop right after Man City. It's like, oh my, it was just a very jarring kind of thing.
It's like, I think literally at the end of the episode, Ted asks Beard, "Hey, where you were?" And he just like kind of shrugs and then takes a nap, and then that's how you start the next episode, and you're just like, "All right,
With those pants. It's so good.
yeah,
But then we find out that Beard rather kind of like gets dressed up anyway when he has a night on the town. So who knows? So yeah, it was just. But I think that's how they were able to do it. Is season one, like it does tackle some things, like some harder issues, but far more relatable things. And I think that way, when you get to season two and you have like some serious abuse issues, when you have some of that, I think it just works better. And like for me, that's actually part of, I think, where season three falls down a little bit is I think what made this show really excellent in seasons one and two is just the smaller like personal nature of it. And in season three, they try to tackle these like big ideas, and it's racism, and it's leaked nudes, and it's like some of these big things. And I think because they try to tackle them in this really broad sense, it kind of loses some of what made the first two seasons special. Everything's very small and connected to these characters, and these are like broad social issues that are connected-ish to
yeah."
characters, but in a less, I think it's a little less successful. It's not that I didn't like their take on it. I tend to agree with their takes on most of it, but having a bunch of guys in a locker room talking about nudes in this, after school special kind of way,
Yeah,
it's just not great. Like,
it
even
felt
if
very
I'm with
Law and
it,
Order to me.
yeah, even if I'm with it, it just didn't, I don't know. It wasn't the tightest writing, I'll say.
Y Yeah, it felt vague enough to where it could have been about anything. Like, you could have dropped in any topic, just replaced a few words, and it's like, "Okay, well, if the topic isn't meaningful to the episode, why are we talking about this other than, obviously, awareness?" I think.
Right.
But, yeah, I agree on season 3. I think it tried to be like, "Okay, let's try and tie this in a neat little bow for because we know we want it in the season/series depending on look, the Apple TV Plus says season finale. I
Right.
will get into that
It's
later.
yeah.
But, but yeah, the way I look at it, season 1 was like I feel like 80% humor, and then it's like, okay, we'll lightly touch on things from time to time, like, Ted's divorce, and even, Rebecca's divorce, I think it touches a few
Oh,
on,
for sure.
but, like, goes even harder in what season 2. And which kinda brings me to the next point is season 2 is much more like a 50-50 split between humor and just talking about really serious topics. Um, and then, yeah, season 3 just really kind of maybe overplayed its hand a little bit it kind of went 80-20 to where it was 80% serious talk and then you got like maybe a joke or two. But yeah, like you said, it is really broad when it talks about it. Like I wish while watching the episode about the nudes, I wish it would have been like, "Oh, my iCloud got hacked, and all these other actresses inserts like dozens of other actresses that exist in the world of Ted Lasso also got hacked, like people she knows or something like that."
Mhm.
Because that would have an instant relatability because we all know about the 2013 iCloud hack. I know people who had iCloud hacks over the years. It's
Mhm.
it was insane. So, and it being an Apple show, you have the rights to the iCloud name. So, but I mean, I guess it's called iCloud Plus now, but that's neither here nor there. But yeah, like I I think that switch I was talking about, the 80-20 switch, really happened on that away episode. What was that,
Mhm.
stock with the
Amsterdam.
house Amsterdam with the
Yeah.
houseboat, and I'm like, okay, this is really where I'm not vibing with what it's doing because it's just trying to be a little too neat with it. And also, I think the format changed over each season. Like, I think it started as 22 or 30-minute episodes, and then it got to like an hour in season 2, and then it got to like 90 minutes in some episodes of
Yeah.
season 3, which is like, okay, look, if I'm going to watch this every week, Ju and you're gonna put 90-minute episodes out, just make all of them 90 minutes because it would be like, "Here's a short little bitty 22-minute, thing," and then it's like, "Here's a 90-minute episode." It is just wildly inconsistent with run and
Mhm.
script a lot of the time. So, yeah. But, yeah, I think it handled it really well, I think, because it tried to not never forget about the human element of it, and I think that would be something very easy to forget in a show that is ultimately, about a coach teaching an American football coach teaching a English football team. I
Right.
forget what the exact, designation, if it's MLS or something like that, but talking a little bit about that locker room stuff, because I do wanna talk about that a little bit. I do think what I saw there was when they were talking about the nudes, is I think it's in season 2, over the seasons, actually, you kinda see the locker room change. Season 1, it's very, like, men will say what men do in locker rooms, and
Right.
who are you to say otherwise, but we're also kinda warming our hearts to Ted. Whereas in season 2, they're like, "Okay, well, we're kinda backing off a little bit. We're absorbing what Ted's lessons are." But in season 3, they're like, "Okay, let's actually stop and consider what's going on right now amongst every member of the team," which kinda started with the back half, I believe, of season 2, where Sam duct tapes the, logo of Ryanair, I think it is, and then they replace it with banter or something like that.
Right.
And I think there was a real focus on trying to I think locker room talk, they really wanted to pin down on and say, "Okay, we're gonna show how a locker room could be if these
Mm.
players actually had a coach that clamped down on, like, hey, let's be human beings. Let's maybe not talk about these things. Maybe let's not have nude girls in our locker room."
Right, I mean, that's episode 1
Yeah.
where Ted walks up to Jamie's locker and he sees the nude photo of Keely and he puts the piece of tape over it, and it's just yeah, we get that right at the start. I mean, that's yeah, I believe that's episode 1,
Yeah.
so of the show. So we know the, like, ethos of Ted Lasso from the top, which yeah, and that is one of the things that I love about the show is the way that that kinda trickles down through the team, through the way that they interact with each other,
Yeah.
that it and I think that's kind of beautiful, and it is a little at times aspirational, and that's fine. I guess that was one of the things that I kind of loved about it is like, yeah, no, there's I mean, when I sat and was researching like Colin's coming out, in that episode, like I was kind of shocked at the level of like homophobia that exists in like professional sports.
Oh,
Like when
yeah.
I sat and like started looking at it and like the number of instances where you'd hear a slur, where you'd hear something like that, it is all of it, basically. I mean, it's almost 100% of people have said they've heard this. And so, like, yeah, of course, there's probably not going to be a locker room in which, or a team at all in which you can feel pretty safe that every character is going to be totally fine with you coming out. But there was never really, to me, like a problem accepting that in this locker room that was going to be the case. When there was like this little tease that Isaac's mad, I never really thought it was going to be, oh, Isaac's this secret homophobe. That was not my expectation of the show. But ultimately I kind of love that. That's one of the things that I liked about the show, is that it showed us like this is how things could be. And it's not like we have to eliminate anything. Like, it's not like any of these men are not masculine at any point in this show. This is a very masculine show without being toxic. And I think that's just an interesting, like an interesting and unique thing about it is, so I think it was just kind of nice to have, like I said, this aspirational kind of thing. And that never bothered me about the show. So, and I know that it can be bothersome to some, but honestly, it worked for me. I liked getting to see things that are nice. And one of the things that kind of struck me with that being the like context of the show is that
Mhm.
when you have something that's not nice, even if it's not terrible, because so many shows, if you're going to do something dramatic, it has to be something like terrible. Somebody has to be just a real, like, horrible villain. But in this, like Nate being a little bit of a jerk to, Ted at the end of the season, that stands out as like horrific,
Yeah.
because not because he even says anything that's like so awful. We have, most of us have probably been in a fight with somebody that was like at about that level where it's like, oh, this feels really bad. And this person's really good at like knowing your hot buttons to push. Like they can like key you up pretty good. But like that feels like this massive kind of moment when it's really just a fight between two people. Like somebody cussing out somebody isn't a huge moment, but it feels like it in the show. And I think it's because so much of the show is just look at how people can be kind to each other. And I think that worked really well too. And again, I think that's where the show kind of like lost in season 3 is the way that the show worked is that everything's at this kind of like even nice keel, so that when something is just even a little bit not that, it really stands out and we're able to see how those behaviors kind of like impact people. And I thought that was kind of brilliant the way they did that in the show.
Yeah, and I think I remember watching, see the ending of season 2 where Nate is announced as, like, the coach of, I forget which team, Rupert Mannion's team. Um, like the enemy team, basically. Like the
Yeah,
I
West
mean,
Ham.
it's the colors are black and red. If that's not more Darth Vader, I don't know what is. But it felt to me in the moment like, oh, to borrow a Kendrick Lamar verse from this week, because that seems to be a big thing that I'm very much following. If I understood any of it, I'd write a dissertation on it. Anyways, Nate feels like his biggest hater at this moment. It just like there's that betrayal of trust. That's what it felt like to me in the moment. Ted had created this kind of really inclusive environment and safe space for a lot of people to just say, "Hey, say whatever is on your mind. Just make sure you're considering the other person." Basically, is what I feel like Ted, the overall message of who Ted is as a person is like, "Hey, I'm just trying to make you the best versions of yourself that you can be. It's my job." I've got the practice speech in my head. My mind's just constantly running, shuffling through memes 24/7. Especially with this show. I saw the hairy ass TikTok clip the other day. It's like TikTok knows I'm going to talk about Ted Lasso or something. Yeah, it just felt like this huge betrayal of trust. And then, which I feel like is why season 3, you got a lot of fan hate about it, like how intense it was. was because of how Nate was portrayed in season 3 and his redemption arc. I think anytime you build a fan base like that, it kind of gives way to like fans having somewhat of a ownership over the franchise in a way. And yeah, that can be dangerous because if you release something like season 3 that isn't up to their expectation, yeah, everyone's who's listening to this has seen probably the public reaction to season 3. So
Yeah.
yeah, but uh, with that, what haven't we covered about Ted Lasso other than future speculation, of course.
Yeah, there it is. That's the next part, is where does it go from here?
So I'll say my theory, and you could say your theory. So, well, obviously that's how a podcast works. It goes through it. But there, Trent Krim publishes a book called The Richmond Way. Healy puts a binder on. Well, man, my brain is. Why do I want to say Regina George's death? Why Rebecca Welton? Basically saying like a women's team of the of the Greyhound. And so, where do we think the story is going? Do you think there's a season 4 that's just Ted Lasso season 4, maybe under like a different title, like the Richmond Way, a spinoff? What do you think?
So I feel like I don't think there's going to be a season 4. Although I have to laugh. Literally yesterday, as we were preparing to record this, Muhammad posted a uh, photo of like a basically like a stained glass believe sign on his Instagram because he likes to stir stuff up a little bit.
He
So
does, especially in
this
the
is like
wait
the
between
second
like
time he's done this.
yeah, like in the wait between season 2 and 3, and especially after season three's finale. Like
Mm-hmm.
the man is a villain on social media.
He is. That said, I still don't think we're going to get a season 4. I would very much be interested to see what they might do with a women's league. I think that could be an interesting, way to go with it. I don't know. Like, I feel like the series is complete. So I'm not looking for any kind of additional thing. I think Ted going back home, coaching Henry's, you know, little soccer league. That's it. Like, that's the end for me. Oh no, we have disagreement here. All right, let's go.
This podcast is about to be marked explicit. I hated that fucking decision. Like maybe I would understand it emotionally if it had been set up like earlier and like throughout the season, not
Uh,
season, but like season 2-ish. But like in season 3, Ted's mom is like, "Hey, you should go back and be with your kid." And Ted's like, "Okay." And just does it and I'm like, "No, what? No."
literally the first episode of season 3. What am I doing here?
I
He's I feel like it's telegraphed the entirety of season 3 that that's where it's going.
See, and I even hated that because I'm like, okay, that's where what Ted's just gonna go back to where he started the series. It didn't feel right to me, but
Mm,
it's just like, oh, he's just gonna go back to Kansas City where he knows no one anymore. Like it's pretty well established that he doesn't talk to anybody outside of Michelle and his kid from Kansas
right.
City. And I'm just like, oh, so you're just gonna it rubbed me the wrong way. So no, I do not accept that reality. I
Oh.
in my head, Ted and Rebecca are married with kids. That but that's not reality, unfortunately. So
Yeah,
um
I don't know. See, I love Rebecca with the boatman. Like, that works for me. I don't
it,
know. I love Ted and Rebecca as friends. I think there's something. I love their intimate in their friendship, and like, I don't know. It worked for me. I was never a big like. Well, I was not a Ted or a Rebecca and Sam shipper
no.
ever. I was not a like that was a storyline I was not sad to see put down. And honestly, I just wasn't like if Ted and Rebecca had got together, I wouldn't have been mad at all. I think it could have worked, but like I don't know. I was never like they've got to get together.
It,
So
to me and It felt very cute, the Sam and, Rebecca relationship. It just felt very
Yeah.
cute, like he was learning how to be in a relationship for the first time almost, and, like, that puppy dog love that they had for each other, or actually, well, Sam had for her, and she really didn't reciprocate all that much. And apologies, but I'm gonna use another analogy, of pop culture. I've been listening to a lot of Taylor Swift lately. It felt to me like
Mm.
Taylor Swift and Harry Styles' relationship. Like, yeah, it's cute and they're 2 successful people, but, like, does it make sense? Not really.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, I mean, I think while I was not super on board with that, I think it also just kind of was like, here's Rebecca at a point where she can learn to accept compliments from someone and accept some kind of, like, love that somebody might love her in a way that is maybe not healthy exactly, but not unhealthy, like the relationship she had with Rupert. And
yeah.
so for me, I think that was kind of the point of that, was really just to be like, okay, this is kind of that ability to get through the trauma of being married to an abuser for, whatever amount of time they were married, the like decade they were together. And I think that was the purpose of that relationship rather than to be a long-term thing. And so yeah, I could, like I said, I'm not like anti Ted and Rebecca. If they had ended up together, I would not have been sad at all. But I am also not disappointed that they didn't. I felt like that could have gone either way. And I was pretty for it either way. But yeah, that's
Yeah, I just felt like I was on chronically online at the time, so I was like, "I need this to work," because it just felt right. And maybe it's because like, that was happening, I think, simultaneously with High School Musical, the musical series, which also has a really big relationship change,
right, right.
and it's just like, I can't handle these things at the same time. I can't have 2 shows lead me on like this, but one didn't. The other
Yeah.
did. But yeah, getting back to speculation a little bit. Personally, I think if they wanted to do something with Ted Lasso, it wouldn't be a season 4 because I feel like
Yeah.
that would kind of be getting in the way of having it end like the way it does.
Yeah. I'd totally agree with that.
And I also wanna shoot down the any chance of a spinoff because even one called The Richmond Way, because I think let's talk business, alright? TV shows have renewals, series orders, things like this. If
Mhm.
they were going to put a spinoff show of Ted Lasso, they would have done it the moment the season 3 finale dropped, because TV is all about momentum. You wanna carry momentum. It's why some people didn't know Invincible the last half of Invincible season 2 was out, was because they were just so checked out, like, "Oh, that's back? Okay. I didn't know this." You know? And if they did a season 4 or even a spinoff, it's at this point kind of just lost profit. And I hate to speak in businessy terms because I didn't that's not my world, but Ted Lasso is a cultural phenomenon. And when you have something like that, it's important to not lose any momentum or anything like that. Because once you lose that momentum, once you people stop talking about Ted Lasso, the show's good as dead. I mean, now some shows can survive that, like Young Sheldon and a lot of the CBS and procedural shows that are out there, but a show that basically launched itself off of word of mouth, even though it had some big stars like Hannah Waddingham and Jason Sudeikis, yeah, he can't do that again. So it, I hate to say it, but it ain't happening, guys. It it's
Yeah.
gonna be a year anniversary of the finale at this point in
Yep.
just a few weeks. And yeah, I know that Apple has an event on May 7th, but based on the logos, it's going to be all about the iPad. I don't expect anything else, not even a mention of Apple TV Plus, other than here's a trailer for what we've got coming next.
Right.
And and no, I don't see anything happening with the show. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. I I would be surprised if they did anything. It is odd that they never labeled it a series finale, that it was a season finale. That does leave open all this speculation, but ultimately I just feel like it's done. And I'm fine with that. It really doesn't bother for it to be over. So
Yeah,
I think it told its story. It told it well with a couple of missteps, but overall positive. And I think just leaving well enough alone is the right call. And it's done. It's stayed like, I know when I like sign into Apple TV or whatever, I mean, it stayed in like the top 5 shows for the past year,
yeah,
like, which is really impressive because, Apple has had some pretty like impressive television come out in the past year.
yeah.
But like
Currently,
Ted, yeah,
it is the fifth slot on their TV show chart
right. Yeah,
still.
like that to me for a year out is pretty impressive, which again is that little bit of like, I guess maybe it could go. I know when I like look around on fan pages, of course people are, please give us a 4, but I don't know. I'm pretty satisfied with where it ended. I'm not somebody who needs it to keep going. But I feel that way. I will admit I am the person who would way rather a show end a little too soon than too late, always and forever. If a show's over and I wish there'd be more, I would much rather I would rather, especially if it's complete. I will never forgive Netflix for canceling the OA ever for the whole of my life. The OA is one of my favorite shows. I loved season 1. I loved season 2. That it ends on this cliffhanger will devastate me for
Dude,
eternity. So,
that's me, and I'm gonna get so many like head scratching like comments about this, but I actually really liked True Lies on CBS. That was a good, dumb, fun show, and it got
right.
canceled before it could even finish its season. And it sets
Devastating.
up like a season 2 that would have been killer,
Yeah.
but
But
apparently it didn't make
if it
numbers.
Yeah, and if a show ends at a time where it can end, then I would way rather it be done. And that's very much how I feel about Ted Lasso. Is I love the first 3 seasons. If that's all we ever get, it ends, I'm good. Like, I'm fine.
Yeah, like I don't need another one, and
Nah.
like And I guess we should state the reason for doing it, why they ended it. I think part of it, and correct me if I'm wrong on any of this,
Mhm.
because you know more than I do about this. I don't like go too deep dives, but well, I did in season 3. But I remember the reason for this being like why this was the last season is that Bill Lawrence and Brett Goldstein wanted to move on to Shrinking, which we'll get to in just a little bit.
Yeah.
But yeah, so, like, if that's the reason, A plus. And
Yeah,
yeah,
for sure.
yeah,
Well, and I think Jason Sudeikis had some like real life Ted Lasso stuff in that his family lives in America and he was shooting in, London, and he was like, this doesn't super work for me for being with my kids also. Like, I
yeah,
have this Ted Lasso kind of thing. And I think Sudeikis has said he's told the story. I will say with some certainty that if there is anything Ted Lasso going forward, it will not have Jason Sudeikis in it. Like,
yeah,
he, from literally everything I have read, every interview I've seen when he was on Brett Goldstein's podcast, everything that I have listened to, he's done. He's not Ted Lasso anymore. So,
yeah,
and without Ted, I don't know, it feels like it would be hollow. And yeah, like
yeah,
I'm just not interested in it.
yeah, it'd be like Joey.
Exactly. Joey's a great character. He's super fun in the context of Friends. Like, I love all of the coaches. Like, yeah, if you give me a show with like, Roy and Nate and Beard doing a thing, it'd be fun, but it'd be missing something. And I'm not interested. I'm good. So yeah. And
Yeah,
I think, I think it's over. So
yeah,
I don't know. But yeah.
and even if they were to do a spinoff at this point, like, the 3 routes they set up, like, just aren't interesting to me. It the Richmond Way one's like, okay, yeah, now Trent Krim and is actually truly independent and just writing books and doing whatever he loves. So you don't need him in the series anymore. Um, Nate is now head coach, I think, at or one of the coaches at Richmond, along with Roy and Beard. No, I think Beard goes back. Does no Beard stays. Beard stays, and like that just would feel like, at least to me, a rehash of what they already talked about with Nate's redemption, and it would kind of almost feel like Ted Lasso season one again. And I'm like, okay, yeah, we could skip
Yeah,
that. But yeah, like it would just feel like it would just feel like Ted Lasso season one. And it's like, if I'm gonna watch something that feels like Ted Lasso season one, I'll just watch Ted Lasso season one. But
yeah, that's very much how I feel about a lot of things, is like, well, why don't I just watch the thing that I already like? That's fine.
and then really briefly, I do want to recommend Shrinking, which is Bill
Absolutely.
Lawrence's current project. It's got oh gosh, I'm forgetting. Jason Segel, Harrison Ford, and two actors I can't remember the names off at the top of my head. I know Brett Goldstein's involved with it too,
Yeah, I think
but he's
he's
not on
one of the
screen.
writers. Yeah.
Yeah. He's like writer and I think one of the producers. I would
Yeah,
watch
Jessica
that.
Williams is in it. She's so good.
Yes.
Oh, I love her so
Very
much.
good. So if you're looking for more Ted Lasso stuff, I feel like Bill Lawrence has the same voice across all of his projects. So either
Totally.
go watch Shrinking if you still got Apple TV Plus, or Scrubs is on Peacock and basically everywhere. So why not rewatch that for the 40th time?
Yeah, exactly.
And he's got a few other projects, but and films to be buried with Brett Goldstein. Uh,
Oh, it's so fun.
and I do want to
Yeah.
mention Hannah Waddingham's going to be in the new Mission Impossible.
Yeah, I just saw her. I just got a chance to finally watch The Fall Guy, and she is so lovely
Oh
in it.
yeah,
I
that
love it.
too.
She's so good. Yeah, yeah. With her, well, she has the brown hair and the like producer glasses, so
Yeah.
we have that going on. But she is a delight in that as well. But
On that,
yeah,
I guess apparently Cristo Fernandez, who plays Danny Rojas, is going to be in Sonic 3 this year, which I have so many questions about. I think he was also in. Was he in Venom? Yeah, I think he was in Venom. I think he was the bartender.
he would. He
Yeah.
was, I don't know if he was in that. I know he
No, that was No
was
Way
in the
Home.
cameo at the end. Oh my gosh, it's the one I can't even remember. Was it No Way Home?
I think it's No Way Home.
Where where
Tom Hardy's Venom
guy
is like drinking,
yeah, exactly.
and Christopher Fernandez is explaining like, yeah, there's a Spider-Man, but explaining all the different things that have happened in the MCU. And then lastly, Keely Juno Temple is going to be in the new Venom. So,
Yeah, no, and like Juno Temple, she is. I love
and
that she
Fargo.
is this almost entirely dramatic actor, and they called her in to do this, comedy show, and she is so brilliant. Like her comedy chops are so good in this, and that they were able to see that from somebody who almost exclusively does and did, prior like dramatic roles. I think she's so great. And yeah, it's the only reason that I wish there had been more of the show is that I just wish more of the actors had chances to win awards, because like literally Nick Mohammed gives some of the most beautiful like performances. They're so good. Phil Dunster gives,
Mhm.
I mean, oh my goodness, like he is so fantastic as Jamie, and like comedy, but like these some like really truly deep, beautiful moments with him. And I'm just like, I'm bummed that, they didn't have chance to, yeah, win awards.
That
That's
Emmy
like
should have been his.
truly, I mean, it really should have. Like, I love Jason Sudeikis. I think he's great. And he also, I have to like point out one of, to me, the funniest moments in the whole of the show, and like where I would give him all of the comedy awards, is Ted goes into Dr. Sharon's apartment to take her bike back after she's in an accident. And she's like, "Can I get you something to drink?" And he takes a glass of tap water, and he stands there and he drinks this glass of tap water. And it is, to me, one of the funniest moments on television. Just the little like, he does it all in one take. He drinks the whole glass in one take. I don't know. Something about it is just so deeply funny to me that you're standing there in the apartment of somebody who is deeply uncomfortable with you being there, and you just stand there and you just drink this whole entire glass of water, and it has the little like drinky sounds. It is perfect. And thank you, Jason Sudeikis, for giving that moment, because I know he's listening to the
Yeah,
podcast. He's watching it right now. So
I'm
I
that
appreciate it.
popular.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Me too. So, like, I appreciate it very much, Jason Sudeikis, that you gave us that drinking water scene, because it is just one of my all-time favorite moments in the show. I've watched it so many times because I think it is utterly hilarious. Brilliant. Brilliant,
Yeah,
brilliant.
he has a lot of gags with drinking water or drinking just various things throughout the series. And I almost thought the gag there. I'm trying to think back to the scene. It was like, oh, this is actual water. I'll drink it because I don't have to spit it out because it's not.
Because he does all the spit takes with the sparkling water. So, oh, so good.
All right, so let's talk about your book, The Ted Lasso Guide to
Yeah.
Relationships, which is
Yes.
on pre-order now on Amazon, I believe. Yeah, Amazon. Okay, cool. I'll include a link in the description just so that everyone can get the copy, get the book. So your book focuses on four kinds of relationships: romantic, coaching, parenting, and friendship.
Mm-hmm.
Let's talk about that. Why did you pick those four tenets? And yeah, how do you explore that in the book? However you want to answer that.
So when I look, I mean, I think those are a little bit of just kind of how we have relationships in the world too. And so I really wanted to do that. But I think that the show, I know they've talked about, like Jason Sudeikis in particular has talked about, like he really wanted to focus on like mentoring and coaching and that kind of thing. And then I love the friendships in the book. I love the friendships between the team. I love, between Keeley and Rebecca is just one of my favorites. I love all the different kind of romantic relationships and the way that it explores them in different ways. Like, they're not, it's kind of funny because at the end of the show, you don't have Ted and Rebecca together. You don't have Roy and Keeley together. You don't have a lot of the people you expect to be together at the end of the show. But I kind of like, even though, like, yes, I desperately wanted Roy and Keeley to end
So
up
much.
together. Like, that's one of the tragedies of the show. But I also love that Keeley's like, you know what? I'm going to do what's best for me. I'm not going to sit here and pick between these two people. I'm going to do what makes me happy and what is healthiest for me. And I think that's kind of an interesting thing, that at the end of the show, you don't have to, and in life, you don't have to have a romantic relationship to be fulfilled. And I love, you have Leslie and Julie, like the Higginses, and like they're married in real life. I love that and how much of the dynamic that they bring to it. And I think honestly, one of the like healthiest people in all of Ted Lasso is Leslie Higgins. Here's
Yeah.
somebody who, I mean, he's goofy and silly, but like he is Ted Lasso before Ted Lasso ever existed in their world.
Yeah.
Rebecca had a Ted, she had Leslie. And like, I think it's kind of interesting. He's goofy. He's like kind of an oddball kind of person, but he's like, he cares about her. He cares about the team. He's empathetic. And I just think it's interesting, to kind of look at all of these different things in the show. And like parenting is such a big thing. That's so, we see that through so much of it, that the loss of a parent was had a huge impact on how Ted lived the whole rest of his life past being 16, and that matters. And like his relationship with Henry is what kind of compels the end of the show. And you see the relationships between Rebecca and her mom. And so there are and like a big part of the book is talking about like Jamie and his dad, and honestly Nate and his dad. Like there are just a lot of parenting relationships that inform so much of how the characters are developed. And I think it's kind of interesting that we don't just see that kind of all entirely off screen, that some of that's brought on screen. And again, I think that's one of those interesting things that you don't often see in shows. And so I think that was kind of where I started thinking about, well, how do I want to structure? I know I love this show. I know I'd like to write about it. but like, how can I structure this? And I started thinking, you just have ideas.
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, but a book has to have some kind of structure. And so it's like, okay, well, let's look at all of these characters, but through the lens of these, relationships that they have that are shown on screen. And I just think that's kind of interesting. So I hope that it is interesting in the book. I think it is. And one of the things that I did in each chapter is I try, even if we're talking about parenting broad, I try to talk about different aspects of that. So, like, having a relationship with your older children, like if you're an adult, a parent to adult kids, or, as a kid trying to relate to your adult parents, how do you do that, through the lens of like Ted and Dottie or Rebecca and Deborah, those kind of things. And then also, how do you parent like a little kid, or how does an abusive parent impact, going forward, and those kind of things. So it's not just parenting broad, but like I try to go through specific kind of things. And that's for each section has that kind of deal. So yeah.
Yeah, from my experience so far, it's using the show to kind of like, "Hey, let's talk about this specific moment, and here's how it can apply to these situations."
Right. Yeah, that's the goal. It's a little self-helpy kind of book.
Yeah. I've got so many of those. I've got a and, I can't say that I'm not a book nerd when I've got, like, the MLA, the Chicago, Psychological Association, style guide, 2 different dictionaries, 2 different, like, I've got a just stack of things here, so
Exactly.
and we all
And
know
books
my
play,
go
sorry.
ahead.
No, I was gonna say books play in so much in the show. I mean,
Yeah.
like right out of the gate, you have Ted gives all of the players a book, and the first thing we see is Ted on the plane reading, and Beard on the plane reading. Like reading and books are a huge part of just the show itself, too.
Yeah, and I think there was one point in the show where it um specifically mentions a book in the episode's title and says, "Oh, you you didn't read the book and that's why you misunderstood this." I think it was like like a play that they messed up and um the book was the key to understanding that or something like that.
Right.
Now I'm thinking of Jamie Tart again. But yeah, and kind of leapfrogging from there, let's talk about I know it's kind of a huge leapfrog moment, but let's talk about how the show talks about found family. H How do you explore that in your book, and how did you wanna showcase that in your book?
I think one of the biggest moments where that is very like explicitly talked about is in the Christmas episode, which, like I said, when it first came out, I was like, well, it came out in the middle of the summer, so it doesn't feel Christmassy.
Yeah,
For me, living in America where it is winter when it is Christmas, I imagine to Australian viewers, it might have felt a little more, you
and
know,
and let's specify which Christmas episode, because there are 2.
are there two?
Yeah, they did a Christmas episode and then, like, a Christmas special, which was, like, claymation
Oh,
where
yeah. No, I'm talking about the full episode. They do
yeah,
have the claymation episode, but or little short kind of thing. I'm talking about with Ted's missing mustache. No, I'm talking about the full episode that dropped in the middle of season 2 and is kind of an awkward
yeah,
episode, but is a lovely Christmas episode if you watch it kind of outside of the context of the rest of the show.
yeah,
That's how I feel about it. But there's a scene where Leslie talks about how he always invites the, you know, players who can't go home to his home for Christmas. And this year, because, Ted's been kind of fostering this close relationship with the team, almost all of them show up at his house, and he gives this like lovely toast at the end, and he mentions, and it's kind of neat because uh Jeremy Swift
mm,
mentions like all of the places where both the actors and the characters are from, like all of their different like homes, which is kind of lovely. And then he's like, to the family you're born with and to the family that you find along the way. And I just think I love that scene. I love
yeah,
that, again, they have this kind of friendship that is more than, you know it's something deeper. And I don't want to say that like friendship is an only kind of thing and family is of like greater importance or whatever. I'm not, I think that's very much what this shows, is that
Yeah.
we do still have this like longing or craving for this like group that we belong to that feels familial, I guess. And they do that so beautifully. And like I said, they do it throughout the show, but that scene in particular, I think, is just really, really lovely. And that whole episode really kind of explores that. So yeah, so that's probably the one that I talk about the most in the book.
Yeah, it is a lovely episode. You're getting me to wanna rewatch Ted Lasso, which is a dangerous prospect because I feel like I'll go through, like, the 5 stages of grief when I hit season 3. So, let's get back to Ted Lasso, the person, the character. What do you think makes him such a compelling character? What makes him such a compelling character that you wanted to base a whole book off of?
Yeah. I think again, it's just this idea. Generally speaking, I am somebody who really likes the heavy prestige drama kind of shows. Those tend to
Mhm.
be my favorite. Like if
Shogun.
I'm comfort watching TV, it's Succession or it's Breaking Bad. I like the bad man TV shows and I just do. And I'm fine with that. But it's interesting to me to have this, here's this character who isn't that, who's nice. And I don't think we get a lot of just nice characters that don't have some kind of underlying darkness or whatever. And like, he's just nice and that's it. And like, he does have, there's a complexity to him, of course, but at his core it doesn't change his decision to be kind to people, to want people to be the best versions of themselves. And that is deeply compelling to me because I think we want that. I think that's what resonated so heavily with this show. Why a year past it being off television, it's still like in the zeitgeist to at least some degree, that, you know, you can throw up a believe sign and people are like, oh, what
Yeah.
else could happen? You know, it's that kind of thing. And I think that's because these are characters that feel real in a
Yeah.
way, but in a very different way than other characters. I've watched shows and been like, yeah, I could see these people existing out in the world, but like there's something a little heightened about them. And there's something of course heightened about these ones too, but it's in such a like different way that I don't know. I appreciate it so much, and I love that it exists. I love that it's something we got to watch.
So I think first, uh, I think it like, it speaks to the show a lot, that I wanted to start watching football. Like, I hovered over that MLS season pass subscribe button a few times, and almost bought the season 3, like, they made, like, out not outfits, uniforms, banter uniforms that you could buy on the Apple Store, and I'm like, "Look, I might make a risky financial purchase if these, eh" but, cooler heads prevailed on both of those.
There you
Uh,
go.
but I think it's a testament to the show that I even wanted to do that. I was like, "Oh, let's see what the show like the show, like, see if I can find a team," you know? City has a team, but we're not good. But, I think gosh, what was the last thing you said so I can remember my point?
Oh, just about like the heightened reality of them, but in a nice way, in a
Okay,
different kind of way.
that was enough to kickstart
There
the
you go.
brain train. So, I think the reason they feel so real, these characters, is there's a world around them, not
Mhm,
that's not central, to them. Like, yeah, to us, Danny Rojas is important, and but, like, there are other people you where, you know, you see the extras who are just never get a line, but there's, like, hundreds of people, in a scene at sometimes, maybe even
mhm.
thousands, and I'm not talking about just the football games. There'll be shots where Ted is walking down the streets and you can see all manner of people and they have their own stories and you can imagine those based on the world that Ted Lasso created because we even get into the interior lives of, you know, pub mates and football announcers and independent journalists and you know, we go past just Ted Lasso and the football players. It's
Right.
the management, every aspect of it, and I think that's what makes it feel, at least for me, so real, is
Mhm.
when, um, characters feel like the most important thing in the world. Like, I hate to keep using the MCU example, but, like, let's use a streaming show example, Falcon and the Winter Soldier. The reason it does not work for me that I'm supposed to, and spoilers for the show, by the way, it's a 4-year-old show at this point. Um,
Mhm.
if you don't want spoilers, just tune out for like the next 5 seconds. You can't make me care about a character whose entire life happens off screen,
Yeah.
where that's not been set up. And I can't root or not root for that character because I don't know what her world is like. And bringing it back to Ted Lasso, it's just like, oh, no, it makes sense that, you know, the football announcers react this way, the pundits react this way because we have context about their situation. I mean, when we last see Jamie's dad, we don't just see him alone watching a football game, right? Because that would be what an insular show would do, where it's just focusing on the characters that are important to us, the
Mhm.
viewer. Instead, it's like, oh no, he's in rehab, and here are all the people watching the game with him. You
Right.
could see people in that background that don't even look at the camera, you know? So, and I think that's a pretty good rule to follow just in general for making a world feel real with characters is just not making the central part of the universe like we thought the earth was so many thousands of years ago, or maybe not thousands, maybe just hundreds. But yeah, that's been my TED talk. But here's a fun one to close it out. So, a big thing in the show is Ted giving biscuits to Rebecca and other members of the team. Imagine you can have a biscuit with one character from the show. Who would it be and why?
Oh, I mean, I feel like it would have to be Keely because I love her so much. She's the character I wish I was like. I think I'm more like Rebecca in that I am, I don't know. Yeah, but I love Keely so much. She's just she is delightful. And I would just love to sit and listen to her stories cuz she has done so many things and I would like to know more about them. So, yeah, Keely. And also in real life, Phil Dunster. Because I just love him, especially if he can like just put on his Jamie Tart voice and say "Poupe." It'd be lovely, but
Super.
but honestly, it is
Uh,
it's very hard to pick. But I probably want to like have a cookie with Keely because I just love her. So
that's a good pick, and you made me realize something. Humble, the real life counterpart of Banter, obviously the
right.
parody. I forgot that when the show was happening, season 3 was happening, they ran like a thing where it like turned into Banter.
Oh,
I
nice.
forgot participated in that. Wow. But but yeah, as for me, I feel like it's a three-way tie. Like I wouldn't want to have a biscuit with Ted Lasso because I feel like you'd talk my ear off. Like, I would just wanna, like, enjoy the biscuit, you know? Especially if he made it himself. Actually, no, I can't remember if he does. I'm gonna have to
He
rewatch the
does.
series, because I remember in season 1, like, there's that whole subplot of trying to track down, uh, what shop makes them.
Yep, and we
So
find out that it's him. He's the one
okay,
who makes her biscuits every day. Yeah.
okay. Which, again, come on.
It's
A
just
man
nice, man.
anyways, uh, I think it's a three-way tie between, um Jamie Tart, and it would probably be Roy Kent if I'm being all
I mean,
serious,
yeah.
because I just wanna, like, joke with him and see his reaction because I feel like he'd be a good, like, if I was planning a stand-up routine, I could go through my iCloud notes and be like, "Alright, well, let me try a few jokes with you really quick," and he'd just be so annoyed, but yeah,
Oh,
and also I'd just kinda be like, Do you have a hairy ass? Do you? Why didn't your locker room stand up to you for you? But yeah, I feel like you would be the one. But I'm most like Nate.
Oh, I could see that.
Um, I'm very like introverted, so I'm just like, okay, leave me. I have peopled enough. I will go into my dark den of a hole, and I will play Madden for the next 4 years. No, but
I will say Nate is probably my favorite character on the show. I love his arc. And I know people are mad and feel like they feel like his anger came out of nowhere and they feel like his redemption arc was not earned. And I just wholly disagree with all of that. And I could do like a whole nother hour literally just talking about how much I love Nate. I love Nate. Nate is far and away I think he is the most interesting character on the show. But all that said, I'd still want to have a cookie with Keeley.
yeah, I feel like she'd be fun. I feel like that could be like a brunch date almost. Like I feel like it couldn't just be like a biscuit. It would have to be like a full meal. Like a 2-3 hour like sit down restaurant where having like 2 courses. I don't know. But yeah, that would have to be like a whole thing. But yeah, on the Nate stuff, I would just encourage anyone who's kind of iffy on that whole storyline to kind of go back and rewatch it, rewatch his whole that the whole series really, 2 or 3 times. Because I think I read some pieces that came out um once that started up, once that I think the series ended, that really went into analyzing Nate, and it made me understand it a lot more. Because initially I was that person who was like, "Oh yeah, I don't really like it. It came out of nowhere." But then when reading about it and like, I think there was one line I read about like Nate spits in the mirror because he hates himself, and I'm like, I
Mm-hmm.
didn't. I'm sorry, I didn't respect your game. All right,
Right.
but yeah, I just recommend that. And it sounds like I'll probably end up sh- rewatching Ted Lasso in the wait for Shrinking season 2. Probably Scrubs again too because why not? I've seen it so many times.
All 8 seasons of Scrubs.
Yeah, all 8. There is not a 9.
All 8 seasons of Scrubs.
You know what's going to be really funny
As
about
a
that
note.
is Donald Faison and Zach Braff have a rewatch podcast for Scrubs. I hope they never cover season 9. I hope they just like ended at season 8. Like it just that it just ends there, and there's like, and then everyone's waiting for the next episode, and there's like a 2-second clip of Zach Braff just talking into the microphone. It's over.
That's what I'm looking for.
Or Bob Kelso just saying, did you like what did you think you were gonna get a ninth season or something? I don't know, Bob. That's a thing for another time, but I could talk about Scrubs all day. But with that said, I want to thank you, Alise, for joining me and discussing Ted Lasso, your upcoming book, Ted Lasso Guide to Relationships. I'm currently working my way through the 170 pages, I believe.
Round about that, yeah.
Round about that. I mean, I'm not making concessions for like title pages and stuff like that. So it's probably somewhere around there. And to listeners or watchers, however you're interacting with this podcast medium, thank you for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a rating if applicable. I know Spotify, you have to sign in to do that. iTunes, you don't. And review it on whatever podcast app that allows you to. And then if you want to hear the next episode before anyone else, my patrons get early access. $3 a month gets you access to everything. At early access at least. And then if you bump it up just a little bit to, I believe $10. 10, you get unedited episodes, and that's exclusive to members of that tier. And then you can follow me everywhere at Austin B Media, whether that's Blue Sky, Facebook, Instagram, Mastodon, or Thread. And if you like Letterboxd, I'm on there at Austin B Movies. I'm also on Serialized as Austin B Media. So yeah, everywhere there. Where can people follow you on social media, Elise?
Most places just at Alise Chaffins, with two hard names to spell, so it's awesome. But yeah, that's most places. Yeah, I'm have accounts basically everywhere. I am most active on TikTok and Instagram. And oh, Barbara says Facebook is for old people and racists. I am on Facebook a fair bit, and that's a good place to find me. I'm old, so we'll say that I try not to be racist. So, you know, but yeah, if you look for Alise Chaffins, you'll find me. I think I'm about the only Alise Chaffins in the world,
Yeah,
so it
you're the
makes it
first one that pops up.
easy.
But I do have a TikTok account,
There
but
you go.
who knows for how much longer?
Yeah.
With that said, if you have any favorite memories of Ted Lasso, I'd love to hear them on social media, the Patreon community chat, or if you're listening to this on Spotify specifically, I'll have a question in the little um, Q&A about that you should be able to type in an answer for. Until next time.